Oseo.
Oseo.
Today that we are celebrating Lughnasadh. Lughnasadh means the wedding of Lugh. Lugh is the god of light. The ancient Celtic god of light is the simplest way to put it. And the marriage is the marriage of light with the earth, with the goddess of the earth, Eri. And it is the time where the earth is the most ripe and that the light is the most intense, here at the beginning of August. It's also the time for the folk, in the ancient days that is, to dissolve marriages and begin new marriages, as we might refer to them. The celebration actually goes on for a couple of weeks, not just one day. So that's the main basis for Lughnasadh. Also, it's called Lammas Day. Lammas has been developed from the name loaf mass, and that means when the first, we call them grains, I guess, the first grains have been made into a loaf, a bread loaf, I take it, like that. So it's a symbol of the time of plenty, a kind of a harvest time. It is an autumn time. In the northern climates, it certainly is looking towards the fall and winter following that. So all of that is definitely a part of it. And that's sort of what we're going to start with. Lugh is very widespread. There's variations on the name. Lewis is the name, the Isle of Lewis, that Shawnee had come from. London is actually Lugh's Hill. There's many variations and places named after Lugh. So throughout Celtic Europe, certainly, and into the British Isles. And then I'm continuing with that Celtic culture continued here in Turtle Island and all the way here to the western part of Turtle Island. So that's part of what I've been presenting in sequence here, so that we may know that. It appears that Celtic people, as a culture, in the northern hemisphere seems to be about 3/4 of the globe, if we exclude Eastern Asia from that. But I'm not even entirely sure that that's excluded from the Celtic culture either. So basically the Celtic culture surrounds the northern hemisphere of the earth in ancient times. So we're continuing with that. And what I'm featuring here in particular is how that culture has evinced itself here in our country, in the western part of our country. And so now I'm going to go right here to this illustration. This is the only illustration that I have made of Lugh. And where this is, I've accurately duplicated, I would say. It is located in a place near Ridgecrest. It's called, Petroglyph Canyon. And there are thousands of petroglyphs. Some of them are noticeably Celtic, and this is one of them. The figure itself, this is Lugh, and very recognizable as Lugh of the long arm and the silver hand. The actual figure is much larger on the rock. It's not only larger, it's higher up. It's maybe higher than this, about that high, up, and it's up on the rock. And that there's a hole in the rock above it that would appear that he would be gesturing towards the moon through the hole in the rock. In my illustration here, the hand is at least 1 times larger on a rock, so it's a very large hand. And that causes the figure to be more tilted back, holding this heavy metal arm and hand like that. One time we were taking a tour there with our harpist, Kathleen Hartshorn, and because of this drawing, she recognized it up on the rock and shouted out loud, "Look, Coyote, there's Lugh." And of course the other people didn't quite know what to make of that. But there he is, Lugh says it's a very fine etching in that way. So that brings part of what we're talking about here. what I've featured here is this is the stone of Bell, which is actually located on the Truckee River. And this figure is not on that rock. But I put this figure on this rock to figure because this stone operates between light and shadow. And the light is Bell, and that's the name of Bell. And this would be the shadow. And this operates between the winter solstice, that it begins the light until the light is completed on the summer solstice, and then that's called the glory of Bell. And immediately following that, the shadow starts coming up, and now that would be Lugh. Further, on this stone, this is the name Calman. Calman is the Gaelic name for the dove, and the dove is the queen of the moon. So that this actually says exalted is the queen of the moon. So we will see more of how that figures in there. North of Ridgecrest, there is Owen's Lake. We would pronounce it Owen's Loch, and that's a Welsh name meaning white lake. At the north end of that, there is a huge outcropping of marble. The rock is marble, and the marble is like veneer, like covered with a light gray. And so scratching through that surface, then you're going to see white. And so there are special engravings there. There is even is the whole zodiac engraved there. And also there it is dedicated to Lugh. And I'll come to tell you how that is. But the white rock, the white figure, everything white is all signifying Lugh. I pronounce it Lugh. And there in this site, where all these petroglyphs are in all different levels, this here, I'm pointing out here, this is a rock that is in the shape of a loaf that is emerging out of the ground there. And it is engraved, and this is what it would look like. This spells L-G, Lugh. That's the Ogham and the Gaelic name for Lugh. Above and behind this rock, is a very large smooth boulder. And on that boulder, very lightly now perceived, is what appears to be the picture of Lugh. Not like this one, it's different, but it is a figure, and on this figure, he appears to be wearing a pointed hat. Now that's interesting also. Everyone has seen, pictures of magicians and witches, all wearing pointed hats of some kind. And evidently, even the recent mummies that the Chinese have found in the western part of China, that they have recognized as some Celtic people also are figured with pointed hats. The pointed hat here would refer to making hats out of tules, because the enlightened people, or the Druids, or the gods for that way, are enlightened, and the tule fashioned into a pointed hat like that is symbolizing that, because the tule fiber was actually used for wicks, like a candle wick. So that's very natural. Up in Fernley, we had a girl we called Tule Julie, who was very adept at making things out of tule, and she made tule ducks, which are famous there in that part of Nevada. And I commissioned her to make a tule hat. So I think that's why the figure has a pointed hat on his head. But the engraving is very faint, not as clear as this one. But that explains, that this is Lugh, and the stone is in a loaf shape. It's about like that. They're coming up from the ground. The other thing is that we're talking about the moon. And now, another Gaelic people there in the British Isles is called the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man has different variations on it. It is an island exactly between the North Ireland, North Ireland, and the island that's England with Scotland. So it's figured right there. It's a small island, but it was very, very important in the ancient times. It's a mystical island. The name Man may be Manan Maclear, a sorcerer, the name of a sorcerer there. And it's also a place that is covered with mist. So that's another way that it's known. You know, it is the man in the son of mist. You know, anything to that effect is like that. It was a place reportedly where Scottish kings were educated, and it still has remained as the most conservative of the ancient Celtic culture. And Shawnee has given me the book of Manx, the language of Manx. This was published in 1876, you know, and here it has Shawnee Carlisle's, you know, name in 1977. So this was the first actually that I knew of this aspect of Celtic culture. How many divisions or sections there are of the Celtic world and how many languages are figured in, I don't know. But more than one or two, and now more than three. But it brings something else, you know, to this feature. This paper is saying that the Lughnasadh has derived from the most famous of the people who have come to the island of Ireland, called the Tuatha. They are kind of the golden age of ancient Irish, you know. Lughnasadh inasa loga maketelen I hoinek no fierte la isam in teniti fogmer. Lughnasadh, the games of Lugh, son of Ithilien, a festival held at the beginning of autumn. And so that gives us a start officially, you know, in this world, in this language. It's difficult to exactly say that the characters, the supernatural characters, are mythical. It's hard to exactly say there are myths that have these characters and so they are mythical characters. They are so much endemic in the Celtic culture. The culture called the people of the Navajo of the Southwest seems the most similar to me with these beings, supernatural beings and so forth. So there are stories about them, but they really seem to figure as some personified qualities all in all. And that's one that we're looking at here. In the festival of Lughnasadh is the Manx name of this festival is Luanstasan, and that's for Lammas Day, and that's from Luan, the moon. So for this festival in the Isle of Manx, it is showed that the moon is the most important. And the three moons of this fall season are called Re Solis Maur Oer, the great harvest moon to ripen corn. And the second is Re Solis Moer Ni Kabil, the horse, great moonshine. And the third is Re Solis Moer Coil in Clay, the great moonshine that has no shadow behind the hedge. So those are called the three great moonlights of this time. And it is figured in those days that the moon was very important in bringing about the growth of animals and plants and those kind of things. And that the whole small island is only, 200 square miles or something, is totally a mystical place and has continued in something mystical, more conservative than found in the other British Isles. So all in all, the author of this paper says, so take a reality adjustment and look for the moon instead. Isn't it only the sun of the other world? So having that emphasis on the moon. And I'm going to have a kind of story, for that is going to be focused at the place we're calling Owen's Loch. Owen's Loch and Lug, the figure of character of Lug there. We're looking at the north end of that lake. The lake is a very long lake. And Lug is looking to the moon, and he is himself, light, and he's looking at the light in the moon, the light in the moon. And he's singing a song to her. He's enchanted by her light in the moon. And she sort of separates herself from the physical moon, as it would be, and she becomes a swan. And as a swan, she comes down from the moon, and the pathway of light on the water of the lake, comes to him, and he receives her there, and they come together in the culmination. Here, their wedding is of the light and the moon, the god of the moon. Here, this is my painting. This is my painting of the swan. The swan in Gaelic is called Bounty Runu Loch Nan Eris. The swan is her ladyship of the lake. She's the queen of the lake there. So that's the way we're seeing her here in this story. When I come down here, I have put these figures here to represent Lug and the moon. And of course the white feathers, that he has come together with her, and now his mind is enlightened with her moonlight. And down below, this is a Navajo sand painting of the moon. The author of this, she has titled it, in Navajo, Talachirona Dore. And in English, she has called it moon bird person. And the kind of bird it is the kestrel, judging by the feathers and the cheek marks. So this is another way of saying the moon. In this display, I have made these things, these round things, even the one behind me here, all to say moon, and the three orbs of the moon. Now I will deliver this, ostensibly, Lug's song to her in the light in the moon. To make good a seizure, as it falls to me, you of the white moonstone in the pond of sky blue, enveloped in the clouds, embraced in the wind, invested, it is me, as I stand up to pull down your wind, to pull down your wind with my song, O woman, wind, flower. 1, 2, 3, gushes up this water to you, you, the gem in the well of the earth. It gushes for you, you in the heart of the sky, I am here, pulling to me the wind of woman, woman in the heart of her flower, the woman in sky's heart, woman in the well. All on high sinks as I stand up, flower woman. Into her covered heart you are coming. Holding her whirling wind, I am your personator. Vigorously embraced in her wind, you of blooming blossom. Alive is this plumed broom as I sweep the dust clear of her heart, O moon-flowered woman. Blossom boss am I for big woolly bee, emblazoning her bosom in the moon.